Before the wars, before the journeys, before the stories written in the land of the nomads, there were the old seasons, the forgotten lessons, the stories passed quietly beneath the trees. These are those stories. Welcome to the world of nomads. Nomads, the bird that stayed. The storm had lasted most of the night. By morning, broken branches covered the lower forest floor, and wet leaves clung to the roots of the giant trees. The younger nomads were sent down to search for dry bark, loose nuts, and anything the wind might have knocked free during the storm. That was when they found it. A small, dark bird lay tangled between wet roots near the bottom of a fallen branch. One wing bent the wrong way. Its chest moved fast as it struggled to breathe, barely moving. At first, the children thought it was dead. Then one of its eyes opened, and somebody stepped back. "Leave it," one of the elders said from above. "Forest things survive, or they don't." Most of the children listened and started climbing back toward the higher branches, but one of them stayed behind. The young nomad did not stay because he knew what to do. Truthfully, he didn't. The bird snapped weakly anytime he moved too close, dragging its broken wing through the mud and wet roots like it was trying to crawl away. Still, the next morning he came back anyway. At first, he brought berries and drops of water, cupped inside curled leaves. The bird barely touched any of it. Then later that afternoon, he noticed the bird watching insects moving along the bark nearby. So the next day, he brought those instead. That changed things. The bird still looked afraid, but it stopped snapping at him every time he came close. A few days later, the young nomad's mother came down with him to see the injury for herself. She studied the bent wing quietly for a long moment. Then she helped him gather thin pieces of bark, soft leaves, and tree sap from the lower roots. Together, they carefully wrapped the wing into a small splint. The bird fought them at first, but after a while, it became still. And from that day forward, the young nomad came back every morning to check on it. The bird healed slowly. Some days it barely moved at all. Other days it hopped from root to root, dragging the bad wing behind it while the young nomad followed nearby, making sure it didn't fall into the shallow water below the roots. The elders still shook their heads whenever they passed. "You're wasting food," one of them warned. "It'll leave the second it can fly." Maybe that was true, but by then, the young nomad had stopped helping the bird because he expected something in return. One afternoon, after hearing the elders complain again, he quietly answered, "If I was hurt, I want somebody to help me too." His mother looked at him for a long moment after he said it. That surprised him more than anything else. At first, he had only wanted the bird to survive, nothing more. Then the day finally came when the bird spread both wings wide again. For the first time since the storm, it lifted itself onto a branch above the roots, and before sunset, it flew away. The elders gave him the same look they always did. "Told you." But a few weeks later, while climbing through the lower branches one quiet morning, the young nomad stopped suddenly. The bird was back, perched above him, watching, waiting, like it had returned on purpose. After that, the bird began coming back more often. Sometimes it disappeared for days at a time. Then suddenly, without warning, it would return and perch near the lower walkways while the younger nomads worked and played between the branches. At first, the others still kept their distance. Not because they hated the bird, they just didn't trust forest creatures enough to get close. But the bird never attacked anyone, never stole food, never made trouble. It simply watched. And because no one tried to trap it, It kept returning. That was the part the elders understood the least. One morning near the beginning of the next warm season, the bird returned carrying something in its beak, a strange berry, dark blue with silver specks across the skin. The young nomads had never seen one before. The bird dropped it near the walkway and stepped back, just watched. The children stared at it for nearly a full minute before anybody touched it. After that, the bird began bringing other things: seeds, small nuts, pieces of fruit from parts of the forest the nomads had never traveled near. Then one day, another bird appeared beside it, slightly smaller. Its feathers carried the same dark shine beneath the sunlight. The two perched together above the village as though they had always belonged there. And slowly, fear began changing into something else. By the time another season had passed, the birds had become part of the nomads' everyday life. Not pets, not prisoners, something closer to neighbors. The nomads built small resting places high in the canopy where the birds could shelter during heavy rain or cold nights if they chose to stay. Most nights they didn't, but some nights they did. And every time the birds returned from deeper parts of the forest, they carried more food with them, berries the nomads had never tasted before, seeds from tall grasses that grew beyond the outer ridges, nuts hidden inside hard shells that took 2 elders and a stone hammer to crack open. At first, the elders called it coincidence, but after a while, even they stopped saying that. The food stores began lasting longer between storms. Children stopped going to sleep hungry as often during hard seasons. Eventually, the nomads built extra storage baskets beneath the higher branches because there was finally more food than one family could carry alone. And through all of it, the birds kept returning. Not because they were forced to, because they wanted to. That was the part nobody forgot.